Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day, and today guys we're going to be checking out the top 5 rated hunter builds over on Remnant 2 Toolkit to see if they got what it takes to bulldoze their way through apocalypse difficulty with ease. And if you're unsure what Toolkit is, let me bring you up to speed. Remnant 2 Toolkit is an awesome community website with loads of different builds made by many legendary build creators in the community, so make sure you go on over and check the website out. You will not be disappointed. So we are going to be taking a look at the top 5 rated hunter builds over on Toolkit. Now hunter is a class that excels very well in range damage and also giving a nice bonus to weak spot damage if you can hit weak spots effectively. So a bit of a word of warning, expect to see all range builds and only range builds. If you came here looking for something else, you're in the wrong location, my friend. And don't worry, do not freak out for all those people that hate constantly seeing hunter and gunslinger builds over and over and over again. I got some news for you. Alright, big announcement today. Not all these builds are going to be hugs builds. I know. Yep, applause. Fantastic. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard correctly. Not all these builds are gonna be hunter and gunslinger builds. Don't get blown away by that bombshell I just dropped too much. There are other builds that exist besides hunter and gunslinger, would you believe it? And we're gonna be diving into those and loads more in today's video. So sit back and relax and let's jump into the top 5 rated hunter builds for Remnant 2. Alright, so let's jump into round number 1, and we're going to be starting off with the top most rated hunter build over on Toolkit. We've got to kick it off nice and strong here, and we're starting off with arguably one of my favorite range builds in the whole entire game, and this build is called none other than I'm Dread Walking here. So stay the fuck out of my way. This build is by a creator we have covered on the top 5 list videos before, none other than Hiccup 251. I actually can't remember what build we checked out of Hiccups before, but I think it's at least been one or two that we have actually covered in the top 5 list. So this man clearly knows how to put some builds together. So Hiccup here has got hunter paired up with gunslinger, a pair up you never see very often. This is great to see. For the skills, he's got hunter's focus and then also bullet storm. For the armor, he's got bruiser helmet, Leto Mark II body, Leto Mark II leggings, and also the bruiser gloves. Now for the hide, he has got the tranquil heart. I didn't have the tranquil heart, I just slotted in the profane heart. Something with the passive effect seems to work really well with this setup. For the amulets and the rings, he's got the brazen amalgam, I think that's how you pronounce that, the probability cord, seal of the empress, ring of the robust, and then the leaking gemstone. Now for the weapons and the main stars of the show, we got the Nightfall kitted out with the bullet weaver mutator. He's got spectral blade kitted out with the shocker mutator, and then the tech 22 kitted out with the boar mod, and then also the feeded wound mutator. And for the trait points, guys, I'm not going to read them out, just pause the screen and copy if you need to. And then for his fragments, he's got range fire rate, health bonus, and mod duration. And then there is his prism setup. I'm not going to go over the prism setup too much because everyone's probably going to have slightly different variation. The main thing is the legendary fragment. He does have sharpshooter. Expect to see sharpshooter and every single one of these builds. And yes, I did have access to sharpshooter, so pretty much all the clips you're going to see on screen, I am using sharpshooter, so maybe keep that in mind if you're someone that doesn't have access to that legendary fragment. So how exactly does this build work, you might ask? It's pretty simple. All you want to do is you just want to apply the corrosion dot with the tech 22. You got feeded wound mutator on there. That way you're going to get a 10% increase to all your damage. You want to make sure you got bullet storm up, hunter's focus, and then you want to use the Nightfall's mod, Dreadwalker, hence the name of this build, Dreadwalking here. And that's basically, you just want to be in Dreadwalker. This is the main source of your damage. You're just going to be decimating everything, and they're going to have a much harder time hitting you because of the mod. And then the mod also comes with lifesteal on top of that as well. It's a very strong mod, very strong weapon as well. Now boar is a lifesaver. There's so many enemies in this game, so many bosses where they just won't have an easy to hit weak spot or a weak spot at all, and boar mitigates that problem completely. And that is one of the main reasons I love this setup so much, is it does get over the lot of negatives that you have to deal with range build when you're not taking boar, is enemies don't have weak spots. If you're not hitting weak spots, you ain't doing jack shit. you have literally 0 DPS. So that's really all you need to do, is you just maybe need to fire Boar if there's no weak spot. Easy to hit weak spot on the boss or enemy that you're fighting. Hit him with Feated Wounds, get that corrosion dot ticking, give you a nice 10% increase in damage. Pop Hunter's Focus, pop Bullet Storm, pop Dreadwalker, lay into the enemy, and then it's basically see you later to them, and then you can just move on to the next boss or area or whatever you're doing. So this is a very solid build. I had a lot of fun with this one. Like I said, I actively use a very similar setup to this build, if not pretty much identical. And it's just so good. It's such a solid all-round build, and I highly recommend you guys try it out if you have not. Also, go and check out Hiccup251. He does have a YouTube channel. All these links to these builds will be in the comment section, not in the description. I feel like no one checks the fucking description. They'll be in the comments so you guys can see it easier. Click on Hiccup's link, go over and give the man some love. This was a fantastic build. Now moving on over to the second highest rated build over on Toolkit. And after you finish using this build, fellas, you're never gonna need that Sasuke body pillow ever again, because the Corrupted Savior hugs you really tightly. You don't need that body pillow anymore, and that's a level of comfort I can get behind. And this build is by Dutch Gaming Roy, another legendary build creator that we have covered on the top 5 list. And here he is again presenting another masterpiece. So Dutch Gaming Roy has paired up Hunter with Gunslinger. We have got Hunter's Focus and also Bullet Storm skills. For the armor, he's got the Realm Walker Barrette. He's got the Bruiser Body Plate, High Noon Souls, and High Noon Arm Guard. And then for the heart, he's also using the Tranquil Heart as well, which I don't have, so I used the Profane Heart, work just as well. And then for the amulets and the rings, we have Zero Divide, Akari Warband, Probability Cord, Xania's Malice, and then also the Braided Thorns. Then moving on over to the weapons, he's got Corrupted Savior with Thousand Cuts Mutator, Hero Sword with the Transference Mutator, and then the Corrupted Rune Pistol with the Feedback Mutator. Alright, legends, there are the trait points. Pause it if you have to. And then for the fragments, he's locked in range, crit chance, crit damage, and also weak spot damage. And again, there's the prism and the sharpshooter legendary fragment. Now, I know I said the last build was like one of my favorite range builds to run, but holy shit, the Corrupted Savior is a very close second. So the way this build works, you have the Corrupted Rune Pistol. You want to use Death Brand. Death Brand is going to increase all your damage to people that are affected by Death Brand by 10%. Again, you want to use Hunter's Focus, you want to use Bullet Storm, pull out the Corrupted Savior and go to town. One thing I really liked about this build that I definitely overlooked with a lot of my other Corrupted Savior like setups that I like to run is Insight. The trait Insight is a lifesaver with this setup. If you guys have ever used the Corrupted Savior, you would know that you get the most amount of fire rate when you have all 5 charges of the fusion cannon. And these charges decay slowly over time. Insight prevents that. You're always at 4, just nudging on 5 charges, and as soon as you start shooting, you're going to pretty much have the max fire rate, and you're going to have those 5 charges consistently as long as you're hitting an enemy. I've never thought about running Insight trait card with Corrupted Savior, but it really did make it a hell of a lot better, and I'm kicking myself wondering why I didn't think of it sooner. I know there's not a lot of like verticality with range builds, they're all pretty cut and dry. This one's no different. You just want to use Death Brand, you want to make sure you have your skills up, especially if you're facing a boss, and then you just pull out the Corrupted Savior and try and hit as many weak spots as you possibly can, pump lead into those bad boys, and yeah, the enemy should be done and dusted very quickly. I will say the only negative to this build is that you have to complete Hardcore Veteran at least to get the Corrupted Savior, but it is definitely worth it. The Corrupted Savior is a really fun weapon. I feel like I'm being very vague here, but there's not much to say about the build. It's just you pull your long gun out, you use your skills, and you shoot the enemy, and shit dies. That's it. Range builds probably are the most simplest and easiest to use. They might not be the strongest, but they really are the easiest to use inside this game, that's for sure. So massive shout out to Dutch Gaming Roy. His link will be down in the comment section below. Again, I really had a lot of fun with this build, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy it just the same. Now moving on over to the third highest rated Hunter build over on Toolkit. We're entering halftime now, and we got another banger to showcase here. The Hunter / Warden Generalist Boss Rusher build by none other than Dane Uryan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It really feels like I'm not. But this is a new name. I don't think we've seen this name before on any of the top 5 lists. So that's great seeing some other build creators making it to the top 5. And this build creator's got a Hunter paired up with Warden. Woo! Something other than Hunter and Gunslinger, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yeah. So yes, we've got Hunter and Warden, and for the skills, he's got Hunter's Focus paired up with Drone Combat. For the armor, we got Nano-plated Transmitter, the Labyrinth Mantle, Bruiser Boots, and also the Disciple Vambraces. For the amulets and the rings, we got Zero Divide, Akari Warband, Probability Cord, Leaking Gemstone, and Anastasia's Inspiration. For the weapons, we got Plasma Cutter kitted out with 1000 Cuts Mutator, Harvester Sight kitted out with the Shocker Mutator, and then Enigma kitted out with the Spirit Healer Mutator. For the trait points, there they are. Glaze your eyeballs on them. Pause the screen if you have to. And then for the fragments, he's got range critical chance, crit damage, and also range fire rate. There is the prism if you want to copy the prism. Sharpshooter Legendary Fragment again. Alright, so how exactly does this build work? Exactly the same as the other two I've just spoken about. Nothing changes too much with range builds at all. Like I said, they're the simplest and easiest to use. The only difference is I do like the fact that they got Enigma here. Enigma has 7 charges on the Chaos Driver mod, and they've kitted out with Spirit Healer. So every time you use a mod, you are going to heal yourself. If you're in a real shitty situation, you can kind of pull the Enigma out, just spam the mod, and you will be healing yourself off that. So that is very, very solid. Not that I used it too often. Like I said, I didn't have Tranquil Heart, I had Profane Heart. I think the lifesteal was helping me out a little more than I give it credit for. But the main star of the show is Plasma Cutter. Plasma Cutter is a seriously strong weapon. The main way you want to use Plasma Cutter is just beam the enemy before it overheats, pop the mod, beam the enemy some more, and then when you do have the mod activated, you can kind of just mouse click and just hold it, and it will never overheat. It will always run out of bullets before it overheats. Very strong setup. Harvester Scythe is not to be slept on. This thing is no joke. It really can put out a lot of damage with those charged heavy attacks, where it just kind of like spins in the enemy, summons a little projection that hits the enemy as well. Very, very strong melee weapon, but I didn't really lean too much into the melee weapon. Maybe if the enemies were really close, I kind of use the melee weapon every now and then, but I was mainly Plasma Cutter all day long. And another bonus is using Zero Divide. I think it's arguably one of the strongest range amulets in the game, giving you infinite ammo reserve, so you can just keep pumping more lead or lasers into the enemy in this case, and you just don't have to worry about picking up bullets. You don't have to worry about ammo reserve. It's just one less thing you have to stress about, which I think is fantastic. I really, really do like that amulet. So yeah, very solid overall build. Massive shout out, so I'm going to try and pronounce the name again, Dane Ryan. Again, if I'm butchering that, please let me know. So this person's build will be down in the comment section below. Make sure you go and check them out. They do have a YouTube link here, so go and show them some support. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. All right, I hope you guys are still with me. We're moving on over to the 4th highest rated Hunter build over on Toolkit. I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit because all the range builds basically work the same, and they're all kind of the same, just with different things added into them. But this does stand out from the pack a little bit because we are using a bow in this build. If you guessed the Genesis, you would have been correct, because we have the Genesis at the 0 hour build by none other than Coma, which I think is another new name that we have seen on the top 5 list, so that is fantastic to see. Massive shout out to you. So Coma has actually got a different skill here, but he is still using Hunter and Gunslinger, but he does have Hunter's Shroud and Bulletstorm. For the armor, we got the Disciple Headpiece, Nano-plated Vestment, Nano-plated Waist, and Void Wrapped. For the heart, another person that's running Tranquil Heart. For the amulets and the rings, we do have 0 hour, Akari Warband, Archer's Crest, Probability Cord, and Leaking Gemstone. And then for the meat and potatoes, we have the Genesis Bow kitted out with the Supercharger Mutator, the Harvester Scythe again with the Shocker Mutator, and then the Nebula Handgun kitted out with the Feedback Mutator. And then for the trait points, here they are. Pause the screen again if you have to. For the fragments, we got range crit chance, critical damage, and firearm charge time. There is the prism if you want to copy his prism, and there is the Sharpshooter Legendary Fragment yet again. So would you believe that this build actually works a little bit different than the other 3 I just showed off, so we can talk about it a little bit. Not too much different, but it's a little different. So the way this build works is you just want to use Nebula, you want to use Nanoswarms. Nanoswarms are going to fly everywhere and apply the corrosion dot onto the target, which is going to increase your damage by 10%. Then, if you're facing a boss, an aberration, or any hard kind of enemy You want to pop your skills, you want to use Hunter Shroud, Bullet Storm, and then you want to whip the Genesis bow out and start laying into the enemy. Now, if you want to get the most out of the Genesis bow, you're obviously going to want to use the mod Mega Drive. Now, to use the mod, you need to be looking at a target. You can't just use it willy-nilly. You have to look at a target to activate the mod. I know it confused the shit out of me when I first picked this bow up, but you quickly realize that, yeah, when you aim at the enemy, then you can use the mod because it marks the enemy so that whenever you shoot your arrows and they impact, they will fly back over and hit that marked target. So ideally, if you're fighting a boss one-on-one, you mark them, you're only shooting at them, the arrows are just going to ricochet and come back and hit them for even more DPS over time. Now, this build is really good. A lot of people are going to jive very well with this build, but I had one complaint. Then it's probably a skill issue on my part. I've used the Genesis bow before, I've done builds on it before. I think the Genesis bow is up there with one of the strongest range weapons in the game. So how did I have an issue with this build? Well, it comes down to the 0-hour amulet. You get the biggest damage increase from this amulet when you are in the light armor category. I've never used the light armor category, and boy did I not realize you get your shit absolutely knocked into next week if you even so much catch a sneeze from an enemy. You are just dead. That was my only issue, but hey, you can just replace this amulet with anything else, or you can even just put more armor on and still have a bit of a damage increase, but not the full damage increase. There's so many other ways you could negate the issue that I was having, but I do like to test people's builds, how they have presented it, so I didn't want to just go changing too much, and changing amulet, putting heavy armor on, I think is changing the build a little too much. So I just bit the bullet and dealt with it. But yes, in boss rush, I was having a bit of a bad time. Bosses, fine. Running through the ad dungeon section, yeah, it was rough sometimes. But other than that, it was a pretty solid overall build. And I highly recommend you guys try out the Genesis bow in particular if you have not, because you will not be disappointed. So Koma's link will be down in the comment section. Make sure you go and check out this legend build. Alrighty guys, last but not least, we're finally at the end. Hopefully you've made it. Hopefully I didn't bore you shitless for like 20 minutes. And we've got a really good build to end things off. Arguably one of the strongest range builds in the game currently. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, Ozzy, how is this the strongest build? But it's number 5 on the list. Because it's a new build. Give it time. I'm telling you, this bad boy is going to be number 1, because this one is definitely a fan favorite. And to absolutely no surprise, this build is the Railhole Monorail Wormhole Spam by none other than a massive friggin' legend in the community, Bolt Jameson. And just like the other build by Danu Ryan, Bolt Jameson, woo! Another range build that doesn't use Hunter and Gunslinger. Let's go. Get in there, son. So yes, Bolt Jameson has paired up with Invader with Hunter, and the skills he is using is Wormhole and Hunter's Focus. For the armor, we got the Crimson Guard helmet, the Red Widow body plate, Crimson Guard legs, and the Crimson Guard gauntlets. And then yet again, we see the Tranquil Heart, and yet again, I'm going to tell you that I don't have it, and I used a Profane Heart. For the amulets and the rings, we got the Short Circuit Amulet, Akari Warband, Archer's Crest, Burden of the Rebel, and also the Probability Cord. For the weapons, we got Monorail kitted out with the Supercharger Mutator, we got Spectral Blade melee weapon with the Opportunist Mutator, and then we have the Sure Shot Sidearm with Corrosive Rounds mod, and also the Insulator Mutator. There are the trait points. Once again, pause the screen if you have to. And then for the fragments, he's got critical damage, rain crit chance, and also skill cooldown. There is his prism setup, and yet again, Sharpshooter Legendary Fragment has revealed itself. So how exactly does this build work? So you got the Sure Shot, kitted out with the Insulator Mutator, which works very, very well with the Short Circuit Amulet. The Short Circuit Amulet and the Insulator Mutator are 2 new items that got added in with DLC 3. So the Insulator is spending 20 to 10% of this weapon's magazine, grants a shield for 5% of max health for 10 seconds. You can get a max of 25% shield. So this is a very strong Mutator, especially the Sure Shot, because it only has 1 bullet. So every time you fire it, you're always going to be getting the 25% shield instantaneously, which works very well with the Short Circuit Amulet, which is why you have a shield active. It is going to increase your crit chance and crit damage by 10%. But that's not all. It also reduces your skill cooldown by 6%. every 5 seconds. So this build does have good skill spam. You're able to use Wormhole and Hunter's Focus fairly consistently. I never had an issue where I didn't have these skills available. Even at the start of a boss fight, if you don't have them, it doesn't take long if you use the Sure Shot and you have Shield to get these skills back. In fact, it's very quick to get Wormhole back and Hunter's Focus. They're not on really long cooldowns to begin with. That is the main way this build works. You just want to use Sure Shot to get the shield up, so you do have the bonus from Short Circuit, and so you can skill spam as much as possible. And the reason why you kind of want to skill spam a little more than you probably usually would with the range build is because of the new weapon, arguably the strongest friggin' range weapon in the game, the monorail. I'm sure you've all seen it. I'm sure you've all seen the clips of people one-shotting bosses, because that is the capability that this weapon brings to the table, and this build is no different. And then now that they've broken down all the synergies that this build has, the way that this build actually works is you use your Sure Shot, make sure you have Shield, then you want to pop Hunter's Focus, you want to use Wormhole, pull out the monorail, make sure you have the monorail's mod on as well, otherwise you'll have a friggin' bad time. And then you want to charge it up until it's orange and flashing. I actually don't know how many times it flashes before it will kill you when you have the mod, but I went like 2 or 3 times. I wasn't trying to bite off any more than I could chew here. And you will hit, if it crits in the weak spot, for like 100,000 damage plus. I've seen people get this way higher with certain builds, but for this particular build, you are going to get roughly 98,000 damage pretty consistently on a weak spot crit. The monorail really does slap harder than your dad after a 6-pack of wild turkeys, I'll tell you that much. It is such a fun weapon to use. There's some kind of like giddily inner child feeling that you get when you hit that weak spot and you watch the boss just get disintegrated with 100k plus crit. That's unheard of in this game until this weapon came out, and I'm glad we friggin' got it. So massive shout out to Bolt Jameson. This was an absolute banger of a build. Great way to end off this top 5 list. His link will be down in the comment section below. Make sure you go and check it out. Go and give him some support. He's another legendary build creator that does loads of amazing stuff for this community. And that is it for the top 5 highest rated hunter builds over on Remnant 2 Toolkit. Did you guys enjoy this list? Is there any builds that didn't make it to this list that you think need to be up there? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm always keen to hear your guys' thoughts. Appreciate all love and support as always, guys. And until next time, stay safe. Peace out.